Hello and welcome to um, the wonderful world of athletics on Thursday with Pinoyathletics. Um, as you can see, I'm dressed up pretty warm because it's really cold in Australia now. It's the end of autumn here in Sydney, and during the night, in the middle of the night, the temperature gets to like 4 or 5 degrees centigrade. So that's why I'm just really wrapped up warm tonight. So in regards to our live stream, we haven't actually had one of these live streams for you know maybe the best part of a month now, as I've been busy with other endeavours at the moment, such as organising meets and coaching and that sort of thing, and also with a lot of write-ups for the site and also work. So I am now just catching up on news, and this is the first time we're going live on YouTube instead of going live on Facebook. So I'm now just going to share this link actually on my Facebook page, so others can tune in. And here we go. So now it's been shared to various social media outlets. I'm now just sharing this live stream across across various channels. So now we have 2 people logged in, which is good. I'll just share my slides now. Hopefully this will expand out to about an hour of coverage. I'm just going to actually now post the other link to the Splash Runners group, so we can actually engage a bit more with the younger side of the athletic community. All right, so yeah, it's all good. It's got now 3 people like tuned in. Not able to see who they are, but we've got at least 3 people tuned in watching tonight. If anyone watching can actually post comments on the side chat menu of our YouTube channel, and we're very very happy to answer any questions that are given tonight on the channel. I'm just going to share the screen. I've got prepared about 20 slides for tonight, which will give me more than enough ammunition for an hour worth of talk on there we go. That's better. So now we've just changed the name of our show presentation. So we do have a special guest tonight. I'm just waiting for him to join in. But while we're waiting for our special guest tonight, I'll just run by some of the other material that I have prepared for tonight. So the first thing that I'm going to bring up and discuss is the Mindanao Track League of Pinoyathletics, which is next running in Butuan. I'm going to just try to get to a full screen view, because that is much easier to There you go. That's better. Okay, so there's the full screen view of what we will be discussing. I'll just need to move it to the next screen. Nope, not that screen. And then the next screen. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to be discussing is the Pinoyathletics Mindanao Track League in Butuan. So it's titled Butuan 2.0 because we had the battle at Butuan, which was held on April the 24th successfully, and we had around 30 to 40 entries. And at that time, it was men's and women's 100, and it was 3,000 meters for men and women. And that all ran on a Saturday morning, and it was highly successful thanks to some volunteer officials, Mr. Dennis Scott for overseeing the meet, and a band of teachers who were really helpful in putting the meet together. Now, for the 23rd of May, we have had to reduce our entries due to some COVID issues, but meet is still pushing through, despite the fact we now have no entries from outside Butuan. CDO, Cagayan Oro entries and Davao entries had to withdraw, but despite that, the meet will still push through. We have 10 entries in the men's 100, 6 in the women's 100, 7 in the men's 1500, and 3 in the women's 1500. Due to COVID, no athletes outside from Karaga will join due to travel restrictions. So we've had to make some clever adjustments to our schedule because 2 of our technical officials have pulled out. So we have now had to rearrange our technical officiating a little bit on the meet. But nonetheless, the meet's still pushing through. Despite the setbacks, still pushing through because obviously a lot of keen athletes ready to run, preparation for the national championships in September. So, regardless, still push it through. Whether or not athletes, join or not from outside, doesn't matter. Still pushing through. Okay, so regarding the Pinoyathletics Mindanao Track League at Butuan on the Sunday, the schedule is as follows: 1,500 men, followed by 1,500 women's, men's 100 heats, women's straight final, men's final. So 2 events, 5 races, with 2 heats in the men's 100. All the details are up on the Pinoyathletics site with the names of the entries and that sort of thing, so you can just look that up there. I'm not really going to be bothered posting all the entries and that sort of thing. It's all up on the website. It can be viewed there. So, just grab a coffee or get some sort of beverage and just mull through the website at pinoyathletics.info. All right. So we have 2 viewers. Okay. So, yes, there's Pinoyathletics Mindanao Track League is proudly sponsored by Massive Sports. Massive Sports is a sports apparel company which is based in Manila, and it provides the uniforms and attire for a lot of the national teams, most of the UAAP teams. It offers very high quality material clothing at a very affordable price. Their Facebook page is fb.com/massive sports. And they're more than willing to take your orders in regards to high quality, low cost material. So so that Massive Sports has sponsored several of our events. They've sponsored our 60-meter dash for cash. They put in $50, and we put in $50 for the winners of the dash for cash, which ended up as a tie between Leanne Pama and Karen Hinario of Leyte and Masamis, respectively, in the 60-meter dash. They also sponsored um, our I think it was our 5,000 meter event, and they provided singlets to the most improved male, the most improved female, the winners of the male and female categories in athletics. And lately, they sponsored our Batuan meet on April the 24th, and they provided singlets to the winners of each, the four winners of each event. So now, Massive Sports again is sponsoring us, but now they have a brand spanking new singlet design, which is these pretty cool like Philippine flag type singlets that they're offering us, and these singlets are now going to the winners of this Batuan meet. Even though we have a reduced number of entries, we're still giving out these singlets with free LBC pickup delivery to the winners. So of the Mindanao Track League events. So the winners of each events, the men's 100, the women's 100, and the men's and women's 5,000, each will receive a free prize singlet. This is the first rollout of this new design. So our old design, which had been given out, is now being replaced with this brand new, beautiful design, which has been given out by Pinoyathletics. By Massive Sports through Pinoyathletics. Now, if you want to buy these singlets, they're also available for sale. I think they value at around 700 Philippine pesos each. But these are a high quality singlet. It's not like you go to, I don't know, to Quiapo or somewhere like that, and you pay 100, or Baclaran, you pay 100 to 150 pesos for a singlet, which will fade and fall apart after a year. This is high quality material, which is being supplied to the national athletes and also being supplied to the UAAP athletes. So it's sturdy material that's built to last and built to survive washes. So it's not going to, fade really quickly because it's quality. It's not something that's just going to fall apart, like after a year or 6 months because you've just paid 100 pesos for it. That's why it's 700 pesos. But if you compare this, like this quality is much cheaper than going and buying, a Nike or an Adidas singlet. You're going to probably pay quite a bit more, but also it's a beautiful design. I mean, I don't think Nike or Adidas come up with the Philippine flag, design. So now you can be proudly a supporter or one day a future hopeful of the Philippine national teams by adorning one of these beautiful singlets. And without further ado, I'll be bringing in our guest for tonight. I'll just introduce him first, and I will then I'll bring him on board. Okay. So it's probably all the athletes that he's coached are probably not all going to fit on one screen. So I've just summarized some of the athletes that he's coached just off the top of my head without, having to really go into too much research. So on our show tonight, Coach Fernando de Gasgas, one of the legendary coaches of the Polarong Pambansa, he has coached the following athletes that I can remember off the top of my head. He coached Gilbert Ratacchio to the Polaro Championship in 2014 in the 3,000 steeples. Varel Verdadero, the Polaro record holder, the hand time in the 100 meters, who also got the bronze medal at the Child of Asia meet in out in part of Russia. Jessel Mappus, Polaro record holder in the 400, bronze in the SEA Games 4x4 in 2019, and the 2018 ASEAN School Games champion in the 2 and the 400. He's also coaching Elisa Koyom, the Polaro record holder in the 100 hurdles, and the ASEAN School Games 100 hurdles champion in 2018. And also Evangeline Caminong, the national junior record holder in the high jump, and the 2018 ASEAN School Games champion in the high jump. So, like one of our best coaches in terms of grassroots will be joining us tonight, and I'll now be adding him to our live discussion. So, Coach, like obviously all the athletes that you've helped and coached, that's just a
Hello.
summary. It's probably not going to fit on one page.
Hello, coach. Good evening.
I see you've
Good
even got
evening
a
to.
microphone set up.
Thank you for it's a pleasure and honor for me to be one of your guests today. I hope that we can share our expertise in athletics to the audience.
Awesome. And yeah, I mean, I think I summarized up like the key five athletes that you've worked with during the Polaroid. There's also others that that probably won't fit onto that one page, but I mean, those are the ones that came to mind that have competed. I think looking back at all five of these athletes have all represented the Philippines at a age grade meet. I mean, and Videro, Lemapas, Kuyom, and Kamanong have all gone overseas and won medals for the Philippines at youth age grade meets.
Thank you, coach. Thank you. Thank you.
So, okay, so what I was discussing was this competition that we will be having at Butuan, which is part of our Mindanao Athletic Track League. What I was saying was that initially the Mindanao Track League was set up by Una Labara and sponsored by the Blue Knights. But since Ernell is over in Europe at the moment and he's very busy with his finishing his thesis and his research, basically Pinoyathletics has sort of picked up on the Mindanao Track League at the moment because unlike in parts of Manila and Calabarzon, there are some areas which are not so badly affected by the COVID that can still proceed with smaller scale competitions. I mean, we tried to have a competition at Binyan and Laguna, but the day after we finished our meet, the oval was closed because the COVID cases had gone up in Laguna. So therefore, the Binyan oval has been closed quite some, and it hasn't reopened since.
Yes, coach. Almost all the ovals here in Luzon and in Manila are being closed because they are afraid with the COVID-19 pandemic. That's why we are also taking good care of our athletes. We are not allowing them to train yet. They are just having their training individually inside their house because the COVID-19 pandemic was really high here in Manila, especially in Cavite and Quezon City and all the cities in Manila, including some Calabarzon areas.
Um,
That's why I saw your program, I saw your competitions virtually. And based on my observation, you are doing well. It's the good thing that you can do to have at least communication to those athletes here in the Philippines who are feeling what we call that low morale because of this pandemic, just to sustain the eagerness and the what we call that interest of the athletes here in the Philippines. That's the good thing that you are doing virtual competitions. If the national open will be pursuing on September, that would be a good showing also for our athletes to be there and to compete with high quality athletes, especially the Patapa Philippine team. We are looking forward for that.
yeah, with the virtual meets, my main purpose of establishing them was because I'm coaching a group of around 20 to 30 athletes online. And the main purpose was, if I'm coaching athletes, say 20 to 30 online, I mean, they're going to ask, what's the point of training if there's nowhere for them to compete? So my first thing was I wanted to establish a way in which I could motivate athletes, which I train. Then, that was the first purpose. But then the second purpose was there were other coaches as well who were in the same situation. And, like because of COVID, because of the seeming collapse of the UAAP at the moment, because there's been no UAP since 2018, a lot of athletes are questioning why are we still doing this? And like in order to keep like the exodus or the dropout from the sport lower, there will be an exodus or dropout from the sport, but in order to preserve or keep motivated more athletes from just walking out of the sport, the purpose of the virtual meets is there to help other coaches be able to motivate and keep their athletes engaged in training, by giving them a avenue to give the athletes chance to be able to test or to um, lift their spirits and morale, by giving them, some form of competition which is available, but at the same time needs to be, safe in terms of COVID.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. As of now, I heard that the Patapa are they're not having yet their regular training. That's why if we will try our best to train also our athletes, maybe it's a good competition that we are have on the forthcoming national open. If it will be pursued on September. That's why we are encouraging our athletes to really work hard on training, despite the fact that we are experiencing the COVID-19 virus, but still we need to be safe all the time. That's why during our training, always maintain the what we call that, the proper distancing of athletes. And maybe it's good for the athletes also to have vaccinated first before they can have their rigid training in the oval, so that there is 90 to 100% safety of our athletes. Because if we will take a risk having our training regularly, then they are transporting to the venue of the training about 30 to 40 minutes, then going back. It is risky for on our part, for the athletes and the coaches. That's why, as part of the guidelines here in the Philippines, they are allowed to train as long as they are uh, having their housing training inside in the sports complex, and they are not going out anymore just to pick
So it's like
their
a training
foods.
bubble.
Yeah, training bubble. That's the IATF wants to do training bubble just to make sure the safety of our athletes.
Yeah, because some athletes are in subdivisions, so they can they can do alternative training. The challenge as a coach, and this is a challenge for a lot of coaches. I know you can probably do it, but there's a lot of coaches that may not be able to do it. The challenge is now is that you're not training all the athletes together. They have to almost have individualized programs because they are in different situations. I mean, your athletes or the coaches' athletes are spread out throughout the whole country. If say you're a university coach, you're going to have athletes in Mindanao and Visayas and North Luzon, and obviously in Calabazon, in Bicol and other parts, Baguio, other parts of the country, but not the rules of the COVID in every part of the country are different. Some is MGCQ, ECQ, GCQ, MECQ, new normal sort of. Some areas have no track ovals. Some areas have no access to the gym. Some areas don't have a swimming pool to do swimming pool workouts. So the thing is that as a coach, you can't exactly tell all your athletes, I want you all to do 200 meters times 200 meters today, because some of them will be like Wallang track oval. We've got no, we have no, we have nowhere to do 200 meters. We only have 100 meters of road in our subdivision. So what are we going to do? Or they're going to say we can't even leave the house because we're not allowed to. We can only do home workouts. Or they're going to say, some of them will say, oh, we have a track, do it oval, but how do we measure 200 meters? So it's going to be different for every situation for each athlete. It's the coach has to be really adaptable in modifying workouts and also giving almost individualized workouts to each athlete in order to adapt to whatever situation they're in.
Yeah, we are now in GCQ, General Quarantine, but still it's very high risk of having infected in the virus because here in Manila, almost 800 to 1,000 persons being infected average daily. That is why the IATF are not allowing yet all the sports fanatic and sports athletes to perform their regular training because of the high risk of what we call that, the COVID-19 infection. That is why the best thing maybe for the PST to really help the Philippine team, not only in track and field, is to maybe ask President Duterte for the priority to become the number three groups that needs to be vaccinated so that the athletes can train without the fear of being infected, because it's really hard for us as coaches and also for the athletes, because if we will train daily, then we are requiring our athletes to train, then one of your athletes being infected, maybe we are liable to the parents for that, assuming that being infected in COVID-19 virus here in the Philippines. I heard that you need around 500,000 for the cure in the hospital. That's why it's really hard for us as coaches and to sacrifice our athletes. That's why the best thing for the PSC to request to President Tigong for the rapid vaccine for the Philippine team athletes, to all the athletes, so that they can have more preparation for the forthcoming SEA Games and even for the National Open itself. Not only for the National Open, but we are also thinking for the Olympic Games, which will be held next year, 2022. If they are not having any move yet for the athletes to be vaccinated as one of their priority, maybe we can expect nothing for the forthcoming SEA Games and the forthcoming Olympics.
The national athletes haven't been vaccinated yet. I mean, I was meant to go to the doctor the last few days to sort out my vaccination, because I'm getting my vaccination in another couple of weeks. But from what I've spoken with the national athletes, I don't know when. They're not sure when they're getting their vaccination at this point. Some of the national athletes, they basically said, I asked them if they've been vaccinated yet, some of the national athletes, and they said that they don't know when they're going to they haven't been told when they're getting vaccinated. So I mean, it is a dire situation in terms of, waiting for a vaccination, but whether that vaccination is going to come in time for this national championships in September is yet to be seen. However, we did discuss privately the other day that you did say that it would be, it should really be mandatory that before we go to the national championships in September, whenever they may be, and I'll just add to that I don't think that the national championships can be any later than September, because if the SEA Games is going to be held, is going to be starting in the middle of November, then you've got to have at least, normally with no COVID, you need 6 weeks before the SEA Games to prepare all the paperwork. But because there's COVID and there's going to be additional requirements, it'll probably be 8 weeks. So that means that they cannot afford to have a national championships later than the very latest in the middle of September. The end of September is already too late. And we did, as going back to the point you did say that we did discuss that it should really be mandatory that anybody going to the national championships really should be vaccinated before, because I mean, even if one person gets affected, it'll be pretty chaotic.
Yeah. Maybe it's the safer things to do. Just like what I saw in the recently concluded fight boxing there in America. I saw thousands. I think around 20,000 who watched the boxing match of the recently concluded fight in America. That's why if the people here or the athletes here in the Philippines, if they are being vaccinated, we can guarantee the 90% to 100% safety of our athletes. And we are not thinking negative or being infected with the virus. If that things happen, the coaches and the athletes are being listed in the priority to be first vaccinated. Maybe that's the good thing to as a good improvement. Also considering that the athletes really needs their training for the forthcoming SEA Games and Olympics, not only for the SEA Games to really preserve the athletes, not only the athletics here in the Philippines, because it's really hard to have our training again if we are being off for so many months, considering that we are about to becoming 2 years without having our regular training. That's a big what we call that effect on our part as coaches. Really, it's really hard to go back to the physical conditioning of our athletes, the performance of our athletes. Before, let's say, they are running around 49 meters in 400 meter, then
Pretty
you
high.
are being off for 1 year. Expect 10 seconds improvement from 49 to 59 seconds. It's funny. Maybe that's the reality. We will not
Well,
train.
yeah, a good example is the men's 100 meters, which I was discussing the other day. The only guy that's run under 11 seconds in the last 2 years is a Phil American that's, of two Filipino parents, who I'll be discussing later in this live stream. Who He's the only guy that's run under 11 seconds. Nobody locally has run under 11 seconds in 2 years, simply because there's not that many competitions, and obviously we have virtual meets, but there's no high level meets at the moment in which you can get the best athletes together to run under 12. Not giving out names, but guys who are running 10-9 are running 11-4 at the moment, because they just don't have the competitions and the consistent access to training to be able to get back to their original times. And it's basically till till national championships in September. We're looking at June, July, August, so 3 months, just over 3 months. That's what, like maybe 14 weeks to basically push a boulder up a hill to get back into shape after having, like nearly 2 years of almost inactivity when it comes to training, and then expecting to be able to get back to pre-COVID shape in only 3 or 4 months. I mean,
That's
it really
the
depends it really depends on the athlete, because I mean, some of them have been able to get more done at an earlier date, but I don't really agree with the Philippine Sports Commission when the Philippine Sports Commission says that 3 or 4 months is going to be enough time to get ready for the SEA Games. I mean,
no, no,
I
no, no,
really
no.
think that the Philippine Sports Commission, like, if we're talking about local athletes, the ones based in the Philippines, it's not going to be enough time. But if we're talking about, what the Philippine Sports Commission
Pilams,
probably is
maybe the
planning on
Pilams.
doing, yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. The PSC is probably planning to just get more Phil Ams, because they can train more properly in the States, because even though the US has a very high rate of COVID, like the Philippines, the organizers and the government have just done things better. They've just gotten things. They've just gotten meets under what meets are still being made underway. They've made the meets COVID safe. The regular NCAA collegiate systems pushed through in the US. So it's like their athletic system is probably a little bit, slower because of the COVID, but it hasn't completely grinded to a stop because USA track and field and the NCAA collegiates have basically found ways to make it happen.
But I saw some of the results of the recently concluded sports events there in US and even in the World Championship and the Diamond League, I think. I saw best performance still of the athletes, considering that we are facing the COVID pandemic. But here in the Philippines, maybe if we will pursue the National Open, expect the unexpected performance during that competition. That's why I do not believe the PLC that they are saying that the Filipino athletes just need 6 months training or 4 months. Maybe it's good to say 1 year preparation is enough for the preparation for the forthcoming SEA Games. When was the SEA Games was scheduled again next year? What particular month?
It's like starting in around the middle of November. The athletics schedule is, I think, the 21st to the 27th. So that means the opening is probably around November 15th.
Yeah. If we will just compete and we will not expect winnings, maybe 4 months training is enough. It is just wasting of money and wasting the efforts of the athletes and the coaches. We used to play the SEA Games and won a couple of gold medals. That's why we need to show to our counterparts that we are still competitive when it comes to competition. We will not
What I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you and with the audience a list of who's actually made the standards for the SEA Games. If we're going off what the PSC said regarding the bronze, and I'll be discussing some of these athletes as well. So the PSC and the POC task force, they basically said that the standard for the Southeast Asian Games will be the bronze medal from 2019. It's funny because the PSC and the POC task force, this rule applies for some sports, but it doesn't apply for others. For example, I'll give case point women's volleyball. They finished fourth and last at the last SEA Games, yet they've still somehow, even though they haven't made the bronze medal criteria, have been included in the lineup for the SEA Games, even though they came last or fourth. My thoughts are, if you're going to be consistent with the selection, if you're going to let women's volleyball compete, then anyone else who came last in the last SEA Games should also be allowed to compete if you haven't followed the rules. However,
they
this
are
is a
the
list of athletes.
last week winners of the recently last SEA Games. Wow, we have how many gold medals? One,
Um, I think it was 11.
11 golds.
Yeah, there was 11 golds in the last SEA Games.
Uh, they almost equal the best performance of the Patapa when Goting Cook 11 got 11 goals. I think that is
I think they tied it.
I tied oh. The Manila Sea Games they
Yeah.
tied the 11 goals. So
So
they,
regarding the SEA Games, there's a list of the athletes that are qualified. So logically, my methodology here is if we're going off the bronze, and I think that because the SEA Game in the last SEA Games they got 11 golds, as you said, but in the last SEA Games it was held in the Philippines. So when you're the host, it's cheaper to include more athletes. So in the last SEA Games, they had a lineup of about 60 to 70 athletes in the line. There was about 62 or 63 athletes in the lineup for the last SEA Games. Usually, if the SEA Games is held overseas, like as is the case of 2017, 2015, and 2013, And I know about 2013 and 2015 because I actually helped select those teams. In 2013, they had around, I think it was 25 athletes or 27. In 2015, they had around, I think it was 32 athletes. And in 2017, they had 30 athletes. So usually the size of a team sent when the SEA Games is overseas for athletics is around not more than 30. It's around
Ah, yeah,
25 to
yeah, yeah, yeah.
32, not more than 35. But when it's in the Philippines, you can double the size of the team because it's less expensive because you're hosting, so there's less expenses. However, I think in the Philippines, in this Vietnam, the team, because it's overseas and it's going to be more expensive because of, you're going to have to put athletes into quarantine because of COVID, so there'll be extra hotel expenses that will probably not be covered by the organizer. The fact that the PSC only has a budget of 100 million for the SEA Games and it needs 200 million, so now it's kind of like hustling and canvassing local government units like Baguio to come up to help them with the extra cost. Um, um, I think that there's no way that they can send a team of 60 in athletics. It's going to have to be, in fact, according to the entry by numbers, I think they requested about 35. So, based on that, the number of qualifiers, according to my list, and I'm not including the relays yet, there's about 18 or 19 athletes that have hit the standard of the bronze. They're either bronze medalists from the last SEA Games or they're new qualifiers. There's 18 or 19. Two of them, who I will discuss in a moment, I am doubtful if they will even attend. Now, the athletes that have qualified so far, but this can change because just because you're a medalist doesn't mean that if you get beaten, if your performance will be beaten by two new athletes, that doesn't mean you're safe in the team anymore. Because if two new athletes beat your time from your SEA Games performance, then pretty much you've been basically pushed out. So in the case of events, we'll start off with who's already hit the standard. So firstly, Carter Lilly in the 800, he got the silver behind DVT in the last SEA Games. Masano, even though the standard for the 1500 is very easy, it's only 409 at the moment, and 408 is the time to really beat. Gumali,
It's a joke.
new qualifier
It's a joke.
in the
It's a joke time. Our
yeah, well,
athletes
yeah,
during
well,
the
it's
I have
the
four athletes who run less
yeah.
than 406 to
I'll put
Tokyo.
it, let me put it this way. The 406 winning time of Dong Van Tai, the only reason why Dong Van Tai ran 406 is because he knew the next day he had a tough fight with Carter Lilly, who was a PB of 146, 147. So he
In
was saving
800.
his energy, so he just ran to win. He didn't care what his time was because he needed his energy to face Carter Lilly because he had the 800 the next day and Lilly was going to be fresh and he just needed to make sure that he won the 1500, but he didn't need to run it fast. He just ran it in the slowest time possible where he can still win the race.
There should have at least one decoy per athlete who run maybe they faster uh, facing, maybe around 58 to 57 per lap. That would
Pretty much.
be just to give
There were only four athletes in the 1500 meters as well at the last SEA Games, but I think at this SEA Games in Vietnam, there's going to be a lot more than four athletes. The last SEA Games was won in 406 by Van Tai. Asano ran 408, and then the third placer was, I think, 409 from Thailand. My view is that 406 will come dead last at the SEA Games. It might, in fact, even the last place probably won't run 406.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Look at it this way, man. In the Gumali has ran 343, so the Phil American athlete has run 343, and also the Thailand American athlete Kieran has run 343. So there are two men there running
Indeed.
343, plus Van Tai, who has a best time of 347. So you've got three guys in the race who can run under 350. So, no, 4 minutes will not even be anywhere. There's going to be more. 4 minutes is going to be 100 meters behind the winner this time than it being the winning time. So that's why I know now the 1500 is the difficult race compared to the 800. Before, the 800 was the stronger race. Now the 1500 is a whole different level than it was in New Clark.
Maybe I am looking forward if the SEA Games will be pushed through on next year. The entry that we have last SEA Games, around 60 athletes. Maybe we can just send 20 to 30 athletes on that particular
Um,
SEA Games.
yeah, my view is that 18 athletes, 19 athletes have hit standard, and of those 18 to 19, two of them are doubtful, which I will bring up in a minute. And that's not including the relay teams. So in the relay teams, we've probably who haven't athletes who have not qualified in individual events. That's probably another, maybe another 10 athletes. So that's like 18, 17 plus 10. So that's about 27. Like, and if one or two more qualify, then we're looking at a team of maybe 30, not more than 35. But that's good because Patafa only requested it because Patafa already submitted the entry by numbers. So the entry by numbers is the maximum number of athletes you can include in the SEA Games of 35. So since its entry by numbers is 35, they cannot include more than 35. They don't have to declare the names yet, but they've already declared that they're not having more than 35 athletes in the SEA Games to the POC.
Let's talk about the chances of the Filipino athletes in women to a chance for winning. I saw the
Yeah,
Loida.
I'll bring you to the
He
next screen because I've actually got the list of the women on that second screen, but then we'll flip back to that
uh,
first screen in a moment. So, yeah, in regards to the women, I want to go through the names of the women who have already qualified, um, who have already qualified for the SEA Games so far. So, the first one is Christina Marie Knott. So, the um, um, Philippine record holder and the one in the 200 meters, who's currently racing there over in Italy. I honestly feel that we've got the win in the one, the two, and the 4x1 at this point. Um, at this point, I think we have the win in those events, providing that Not is still, um, you know,
or
is
the
not.
twin Richardson can be part of the relay team
Yeah,
and
and in
for by
fact, both the Richardson twins have both made the individual standard for the 100-meter dash as well, because the bronze medal is 11:66, and both the Richardson girls have ran 11:65. So they have to choose between these two Richardson sisters, which one of them will be running the 100 meters with Christina Knott. Because as far as I know, only two entries per country, unless if Vietnam decides to change it to three entries per country, which they were talking about, then it will be the three of them in the 100-meter dash, like Kyla, Kayla, and Christina. Look, Zion Nelson hasn't really ran this year because she's had an injury, so she hasn't really registered any new performances. So it's just, Kyla and Kayla are the next two behind Christina at the moment.
what's
So I
the
think,
what's now the status of training of our pole vaulter who will be competing in the forthcoming Olympics? Is he in
Peter
America having his
Obiena,
training? Yeah, Obiena, Obiena.
yeah, he's training really well. I don't know if he's going to be competing any. I haven't been informed if he has any competitions before the Olympics, but I heard that he's been really like going well in training, staying injury free is the main thing, really focused on his Olympics. So I think that he's in good shape.
Mm,
So yeah, with the women's, going back to the women's, I'm looking at who else has qualified. So Gagnow has qualified, but I don't think she's not really near a gold because there's that girl from Vietnam who's really like 1 minute faster in the steeples and more than a couple of minutes faster in the 5K. So I think that the gold chances are not really there for Joyda. But the thing because that one Nguyen girl is running like 9:45 in the steeples versus Joyda who ran 10:59. I think that I know that Joyda's training at the moment. I was told she's training at the moment, but it's hard because the thing is that Vietnamese athletes have got competitions at the moment. They've actually got well organised meets leading up to the SEA Games. So they're going to have more, they're going to be more race prepared when it comes to SEA Games. So then looking at the other athletes, Robin Lauren Brown has been running over in the US and she's been running close to her best time of 58:49. I think that Robin will obviously get a medal again, but the thing is that, she's up against Vietnamese girls who run 55 and 56, who are like, 2 seconds faster because they're 3 seconds faster than her over the 400. So I think that, she'll get on the medal stand, but it's tough because she's up against like Quach Lan, who's going to the Olympics for Vietnam in the 400 hurdles. So it's like really just to say of Robin is basically the only women's hurdler we have that's got any chance of getting any medal. Because in the women's 400 hurdles at the SEA Games, if you can't run under 56 for the 400, you have no chance of getting a medal in the 400 hurdles. I mean, if you're running 56 and 57 for the 400, you may as well try the 8 or the 1.5 because your speed is not enough even for 400 hurdles at SEA Games in the women's if you're only 57 or 56.
but I saw
Um,
the the chance for a Filipino runner in women are we have only a chance in sprint or not,
yeah, Chris,
and
and maybe the
even
pole,
a steeplechase,
the steeplechase.
in 1.5 or 5,000 meter run because Loida got a bronze,
Yeah, but you've got to take into
unexpected.
account that Joyda got the bronze, but the bronze was very far behind the silver and the gold. We're talking 17:52 for the bronze, and then the gold is like 16 minutes, almost 16 flat. Like they're nearly 2 minutes in front in the, more than a minute in front in the
One round in
5K,
the oval, no?
almost 2 rounds, almost
Two
two.
rounds, so almost two
Yeah,
rounds.
I mean, look at it this way. 17, you're lucky to get a bronze with 17:52 because I remember in the 2015 SEA Games, we sent Grace De Los Santos to the SEA Games in the, actually, it was the 10K. She went to the SEA Games in the 10K. Grace De Los Santos's PB was 17:45. So she got a better PB than Joyda, but she wasn't good enough for the 5K because at that time 17:45 would have got you like 8th or 7th place, but now 17:52 was luckily it got you third because there's not very many entries. But if there's a lot of entries, that 17:52 will not land you top three because it's really it's a really slow time. It's
Yeah.
usually in SEA Games, bronze is like 16:50 or 16:40. It's 17:52 is a very slow time to get a bronze.
Do you think how old is the runner Abiatem in 5,000 and 3,000 steeplechase? Is
Oh,
she still competing in the next SEA Games?
well, look,
I
last year she just ran her PBs. She's already run PBs recently. The girl from Vietnam is only she's only 1 year older than Joyda. She's born in 1995, so she's 26. Joyda's 25. Vietnam is
uh
26.
so it means She still
They're
have
pretty much the
two
same
sea games
age,
to go. Two sea games to go up to 33.
maybe more, because the thing is that this 1 million girl, is around the same age as Joyda. I mean, when she first started running in the Sea Games against Jessica Barnard, she was only a teenager. So she's been, 1 million has been around for about 8 years, but when she first played in the Sea Games in 2013, she was 18. So she's been around a long time in the Sea Games. That's why we think she might be old, but she started when she was very young. So she's,
Yeah, she has still 2 to 3 sea games more.
yeah. I'll give you a
We don't have
comparison.
still young.
I'll give you a comparison between Joyda and Juan. Juan is
Yeah.
best, like Juan of Vietnam. The best time in the 1500 meters is 4 minutes 13. Like Joyda's
Four.
best time is 4 minutes and 13 seconds for Vietnam for 1500. So steeple chaser, and Joyda's best time is 4 minutes 45. So
Very
she's
far.
30 seconds faster than Joyda in the 1500. That's why in the steeplechase she's a minute faster
Maybe if
because
Joy is more focused to his training, to her training, maybe it's a good fight just to improve 30 seconds. Let's say 445 to 420, like that.
yeah, but that's if the coach focuses on the speed. If the coach is
This
focusing
speed
on
is
the
the
long run, long slow runs and
this
long runs, then
this
obviously the
speed
athlete's not
in
going to get faster in the speed.
speed and physical conditioning. That's the thing that the Joyda needs to improve. And he
Well, she also
during that
needs
time,
to, like, in my opinion, she needs to really improve both because she doesn't have the speed and she doesn't have the endurance. Because if you're running 17:52 in the 5K and that's your best time, that's still very slow. And then if you're running 4:45 in the 1500, that's still very slow. So that means that the Vietnamese girl has ran 16, I think it's 16:20 or 16:10, and she's ran 4:13 in the 1500. So that means that the Vietnamese girl has better endurance and better speed than Joyda. So that means Joyda really has to work on both in
that
order
girl,
to.
that woman is only one who won 1,500, 3,000 meters steeplechase and 5,000 meter. Only one. Only one
It's the
woman.
same girl, and she's also
Uh,
run, and also this year she's run 34 minutes in the 10K.
so it's possible that she will climb the 10,000 meter, 5,000 and
She doesn't, if
steeplechase.
they
She
want
will not
to, but
run
they don't need to because they have two
1,500.
women that can run. They have two women that can run 34, so they don't need to play her. They've got so much. They have so many other athletes that they can use that they don't need to play her in 4 events. They can if they want. I guess it would depend on the schedule. But Vietnam has another woman that runs 34 minutes as well. So they can win with the other one if they want because
Who
they're
who
the
won
only
the
country that has two women under 35.
who won the last SEA Games in 10,000 meter run? What is
Vietnam.
her time? Also Vietnam.
Yeah, I'm just having a look here. I think it was the other girl that improved to the 35. So the winner of the Sea Games in the 10,000 meters for the women was Hugh of Vietnam. Her time in the last Sea Games was 36 minutes and 23 seconds, but she has improved her best time since then to 34 minutes and 52 seconds.
It's hard to beat. If
So she
our
not only did she win, but she's gotten a lot stronger from her gold winning time. So the two Vietnamese girls run 34 minutes 40 and 34 minutes 52. So that's why they don't need to enter two of them. They only need to enter one of them so they can win the gold. So that they can spread their athletes out in different events because they have so many good athletes. They can actually, put different athletes in each event if they want. So
Charger.
yeah, like
Lobat lang, babe.
that girl who got the 3 golds in the steeplechase, the 1500 and the 1500, the steeplechase, and the 5K. To my knowledge, she is the only triple gold medalist in individual events at the SEA Games. I think she's the only athlete in the athletics who got 3 golds.
That's her second time to win 3 golds.
Uh, I'm not sure. I can't remember, but I know that she did. I'm not sure if she won 3 golds in Malaysia, but she's been around since 2013. I think she got fourth in 2013 behind Jessica, but I think that yeah, she won 3 golds in 2017, and then she won 3 golds in 2019. So I'm just looking now.
He is now a millionaire. She's now a millionaire.
Well, by millionaire, we're talking about, she might have a million dong, but a million dong is about $50. So yeah,
Pwede,
the other women, so yeah, Robin Brown, obviously I said maybe, get a medal. Like Natalie Uwai, I'm pretty sure that she'll win it because there's no one really out. There's, the Thailand girl already retired, so there's no one else really in the women's pole vault jumping over 4 meters. So I think that Natalie Uwai will probably defend her gold. The women's and the women's heptathlon, the women's marathon will be more difficult because there'll be more stronger athletes there than there was last time. So
how about the decathlon? Do you think we have still a chance
heptathlon or the
to
decathlon,
dominate the decathlon?
men or women? Men.
Men and women.
I think
Men,
it's
men, men.
harder for the. I think it's going to be harder for them to defend in that event, and not the men, but in the women. I think it's harder to defend because the thing is that it's hard to train. Like imagine all the other countries are training more effectively right now, and not just that. That last SEA Games, that some of the stronger athletes in the heptathlon did not join. But taking nothing away from Sarah because Sarah improved a hell of a lot. I mean, she got 300 points better. So she really gave it all, and was a deserving champion. But in my view, it's going to be tougher in Vietnam because there's going to be stronger opponents there, and they have been able to train for an event like a multi-event like a heptathlon. You need to be able to have hurdles, throwing equipment, and you need to be able to train for it because it's 7 events. And if you sort of screw one of the events up, you lose a lot of points. And
Is
the
it
other countries have been able to train more
is it the
better for
first
some of
time
these
that
multi-events.
the Filipino athletes won in heptathlon in the SEA Games, or is there anybody else who won before? I think
What was the
won.
question?
Ilma Moros.
Oh
Do
yeah, in
you think
heptathlon, Elma Muros,
how
Nini
many times he
Gamal.
won? She won
I don't know, maybe 3, but
3 times.
not just
So
Elma Muros, but Nini Gamal won the SEA Games twice in the heptathlon. It's not just Sarah. Sarah's like one of many in the SEA Games. I'm just having a look now at my records to see who else has won the women's heptathlon, which is a pretty good question.
it's the first
I'm just
time
having a
maybe.
look now who's won the women's heptathlon in the history of the SEA Games. So, the Philippines joined the SEA Games in 1977. So the winners
Uh,
of the Philippines. So in 1985, Nini Gamal. In 1991, Nini Gamal, who was then Nini Poliosis. In 1997 and in 1999, Elma Muros.
Two
So,
times El Mamuros won
yeah, Nini Gamal has won the SEA Games twice in the heptathlon, and Elma Muros has won the SEA Games
twice.
twice in the heptathlon. So if Sarah defends her title, she will become one of three women who have defended their title twice, who have won the SEA Games twice in the heptathlon, and according to our records, the only woman to defend their title from the Philippines back to back, because Alma won, then she lost her title, then she won it again. Nini Gamal had 6 years between her titles. So if Sarah will win the women's heptathlon at the SEA Games, she'll be the first Filipino woman in the history of the SEA Games to defend back to back in the heptathlon.
Yeah, but in decathlon we have three athletes who won the SEA Games.
In the
I
in the decathlon, I believe it is three in the men. The
Galinero.
previous champions in the decathlon, according to the list of champions, is as follows. Um, what's this? Here we go. Okay, so the Philippines, the first athlete ever to win in the SEA Games is Fidel Galinero in 2001,
How about
followed by
David Bonifax?
David
He
Burnifax, finished second in the SEA Games behind the Malaysian.
second only.
Yeah.
I thought
So,
he won the gold medal.
well, he basically came along as if he was going to win, but then he ended up getting second behind a Malaysian American. So there was, so there's been Fidel Galinero in 2001, Jason Sid in 2013, and then Aries Toledo back to back in 2017 and 2019. So Aries Toledo is the only one who has won it more than once, and he's won it back to back.
How
So if he can
about
make it three in a
Jason
row,
Ramil? Ramil Sid.
he
How
won
many
it
times
once,
he won? Once only?
2013,
Twice?
once, because he got the
Once
silver
only.
in 2015. He got the silver behind the Thailand.
Only once.
He won in 2013 in Myanmar. So
Toledo twice.
with sorry, what was that?
Toledo won twice already.
Toledo's won it twice. So with the list of athletes for the SEA Games, obviously, so going back to the men, Gamali, Wagdos, who has the bronze at 13:34, Clinton Bautista, who won it in 2000, who's Clinton Bautista is the only male sprinter to win the 110 hurdles for the Philippines in the history of the SEA Games. We've never won the 110 hurdles in the SEA Games until Clinton won it in Clark class
Maybe
last
that's the first time also for the Filipino to won the 110-meter hurdles in the SEA Games.
the first time to win it in the SEA Games. Yeah, like I mean, it was a thrilling race where Clinton won it by the tip of his tongue, basically. Like it was literally they were given the same time, but Clinton won it by thousandths of a second over Razam Sofi and the four-time SEA Games champion who was defending.
Yes, it was really very very close
Yeah,
matchup.
so Clinton is Clinton is the first one to ever win the 110 hurdles at the SEA Games level. Then following that, we've also got Eric Cray, um, who's four-time SEA Games champion in the 400 hurdles, and he's going for his fifth SEA Games title. Probably the greatest hurdler in the history of the SEA Games, I would say. I mean, in the men's 400 hurdles, I believe that nobody has won the SEA Games four times in the history of the SEA Games.
E-
There's been a lot
Except
of there's been a couple of Thailanders who have won it 3 times, but you know, Eric is the only one who's won it 4 times, and now he's going for number 5. If he runs it, it'll
How
be his
about
fifth title run
Sir Nonoy also? Did he won the Porlo for how many times?
once.
Once only.
Yeah, in the Sea Games, we have had 4 champions in the 400 hurdles, but the other three, first was Grappolo, then Unso, then Anilio. They only won it once each. There were 3 years in a row. 1981 was Grappolo, 83 was Unso, and 85 was Anilio. So 3 years in a row, a different athlete from the Philippines won, but they only won once each. So yeah, the three of them have 3 medals. Eric Cray has 4 in the below. Then
How about
also the other
the relay? Do you have the record that we won the 4 by 100-meter relay in men or even in women?
in the
The gold,
history of the Sea Games, we have never won
the
the
relay.
men's 4x1, and
For,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't think we've won the women's as well. No, we've never won the men or the women in the Sea Games. However, at the Asian Games level, we have 2 golds in the men and 1 gold in the women at the Asian Games level. But at the Sea Games level, we have never won the men or the women's. But there's a big chance
during
in
that time of
2021.
Piliosis, I think,
Yeah,
in the SEA Games.
the
Piliosis and
when the Philippines won the women's 4x1 at the Asian Games in the 1950s, Solis and Sulaiman were part of that 4x1. So that was in the
okay.
1950s when they won the bronze at the Asian Games and the women's 4x1. Um, the yeah, so with that in mind, looking at the well as the other contenders Sea Games, Dion is in the triple jump, as we mentioned before. EJ Obieno, who's obviously a clear favourite in the men's pole vault. Willie Morrison in the throwing events, and then Colano in the javelin after he surprisingly won the gold over his Vietnamese and Thailand opponents. Um, then on the second page, I haven't mentioned yet, you have Toledo and Ubis in the multi events. We have McKinnon, and then we have the 2 girls in the marathon, Velasco and Mary Jo Bell. However, it's going to be tough because the Vietnamese are running very well in the marathon at the moment. They've had a lot more competition, so it's tough for these two because obviously there's not so many meets. Like the Vietnamese are in pretty good shape now in the women's marathon as well. I believe that the Vietnamese girls run 2:47 or something already this year, so she's in pretty good nick. Or two, it might be even 2:45. I haven't, yeah, I'm not really entirely sure. But with the list of the Sea Games athletes, there are 19 names I've given there. But of the 19, I know that Carter Lilly and Willie Morris have not even competed since March of last year. So whether or not they're going to appear in the Sea Games is yet to be known because I haven't seen, they've got meets where they are in the US. They have competitions. They just haven't competed since March of last year. So they have no performance since March of last year. It's understandable if athletes in the Philippines, like, for example, Ubis, Toledo, McKinnon have no performances because they don't have meets. They have nowhere to compete in the decathlon, so they can't, it's not expected that they have meets. But for example, in the US, for these 2 athletes, Carter and Morrison, they have meets where they live, but they're not joining them. So the question is, are they going to even show up at the Sea Games?
I saw one athlete or Filipino athlete who will compete in the invitational or qualifying for the Olympics in Para Games.
Yeah,
He is our 400-meter champion before also. Who is that? Bagsit? Who is
Babs.
it
Yeah,
that he he will be competing in a partially blind category?
no, but he's got bad eyes.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
has
I saw
he has
the
bad eyes.
is together with Candelario.
Yeah, yeah, they're over in Switzerland. He has bad eyesight, so his eyes are not very good. So therefore, like that's why he competes partially blind because his eye he has he has poor eyesight.
He has a good chance of winning the gold in the Olympics if he can still run 48 seconds because I saw
Yeah,
the
I don't know
champion.
because there are actually guys in the partially blind that are pretty fast. I mean, I looked at the partially blind. There's guys in the partially blind running 10.6 in the hundred. So that's what I'm saying is that there are other guys in the partially blind that can run 48 as well. So it's like there are strong athletes in the partially blind at that level.
Let's hope a better future for Bagsit. He is not attached to AFP. That's why it's a good chance for him to get back to the Philippine team this time
Mm.
in a partially blind or Phil Espada. That would be a good development for him. And I would like to thank also my friends who are watching now, Engineer James Bakuna, James Bisoy Vlogs, and Kulanog TV, and to my athletes also, but they are now off. Thank you so much. Sometimes, coach, if you will have live streaming like this, you can invite me so that
Yeah.
we can gain more, what you call that, viewers just to watch out for our discussion. It's good to have a good discussion with you regarding the development of the Philippine athletes. It's
I
a
have a
good,
few more.
what is that? Crispy.
I have a few more slides to go through. So I'm just talking about athletes that are close to qualifying because obviously, there's not that many meets in the Philippines. So there's no really new qualifiers from the Philippines for the SEA Games. But as we discussed, it looks like the PSC would
Too
probably
big.
look more towards getting Phil Am athletes because they actually have meets where they can actually hit standards at the moment for the SEA Games. This is one athlete that I was mentioning to you before. He's like the number one at the moment in the Philippine men's ranking list in the 100 meters. Since there's been no competitions really, not much competition in the Philippines, he's leading the Philippine men's rankings at the moment with times of 10.76 and 10.88 in the 100 meters. And this guy is born in 2001. He's only 20 years of age. His name is Nolan Crespo. He goes to the University of California in San Diego. He has two Filipino parents, and his coach is one of his coaches is John Gilmere, who was the original coach of Taylor and Kyla Richardson at the Academy of Speed in Los Angeles. So he's working with Coach John um, during the summer to get him ready for the Philippine National Championship in September.
He's promising. How tall he is?
Not that tall. I mean, maybe like about 5'6", 5'7".
Mm,
But yeah, he's run. He's a small, not he's not that tall, but he ran a 10.76 into a -1.2 headwind the other day. So he didn't have the next race he had was 10:88, but with wins, so it wasn't as good a race. But I was expecting, he was going to be able to run about 10:60 for the 100 meters.
He is look like Beram. He is
I think the difference between Crespo and Berham. Obviously, Berham's a lot faster. That's one
look
difference.
Beram.
The
Yeah,
other
yeah, yeah.
difference is that
But I think he
Berham,
is taller than Beram.
he probably made Berham is only 5'6" or 5'7" as well. So
Yeah, yes.
maybe I'm not sure. But the thing is with Berham is that Berham's mother is Filipino, but his father is white American. So Berham is a half Filipino, but both Nolan's parents are Filipino. So he's pretty much Filipino. He just grew up in the States. Um, Going to the next slide. This is the ranking list for the men at the moment. Because there's only really been virtual meets in the Philippines. This is the ranking list for the Philippines for the men's 100. So Nolan leads with 10:76. He's a long way in front of Jerome Salinas, who comes in at second at 11:17, followed by Labita, Ivanoso, and Ubis. Obviously, Jerome is having another run this weekend at the Buckuan meet, so hopefully, he'll be able to get down to a lower 11-second run. A bit difficult because a lot of athletes withdrew from CDO. A lot of athletes that were scheduled to join from Cagayan de Oro and Davao withdrew because of COVID travel restrictions. So therefore, there are now only two heats in the men's 100 meters on Sunday at Buckuan. Obviously, Stalinius and Ivanoso will be racing again. It was a very close race between them on the 24th of April in the 100-meter dash, with Stalinius winning over Ivanoso in 5.05 seconds. Obviously, they didn't use time blocks, so obviously he can run maybe 11 flat, 11:02 if he uses blocks, but doesn't really have them. So that's effectively the men's 100 meter. The other guys running under 11:40, only one guy running under 11 at this point. Next, these two athletes here from the US are aiming for the SEA Games at throwing events. So the
Wow.
standard for hammer throw is 55.96 meters. So 3 times this year, 50-year-old Chilo Corrales Nelson, the younger sister of Zion Corrales Nelson, has broken the record of Laurelie Simona, which she threw 50.63, 52.16, and 53.78. So she is 2 meters away from hitting the Seagull standard in the hammer. Also in the shot put, she has thrown 13.07 and the standard is 13.36. So she's 29 centimeters away from hitting the shot put standard. Then also Kira Moren, who is 22 years of age, the Philippine junior record holder in the javelin. She threw a new personal best of 48.24 meters, but she needs to throw 80 meters to qualify for the SEA Games. As well as Moren, also aiming for the SEA Games in the javelin, is 2017 SEA Games bronze medalist Evelyn Calabrese, who has thrown 50.80 meters, but needs to throw 51.80 after placing fourth last SEA Games. So athletes like Nelson, like Shilo Nelson, Nolan Crespo, Alfrenzi Braza, and others, part of the new batch of athletes who are millennials born after the year 2000 that are starting to emerge and challenge for spots in the SEA Games. So there's a new batch of athletes coming through who are born after 2000 that are beginning to emerge.
They're tall, huh?
Well, like she is, I think, 5'9" to 5'8". Like Shilo Nelson's 5'8" or 5'9". Sarah Moran is 5'5". She's 5'5" in height. I mean, the way the Sarah Moran, the way she throws, and like it reminds me of Geraldine Amandaron. She's very a very similar athlete to Geraldine Amandaron, very strong in the upper body in the gym, and body in the gym, and also very similar throwing style to Amandaron, who holds the Philippine record in the women's javelin in the 540. So the next thing I'm going to touch base on is just some international news before we just round it up with the international news. There's a very fast 100 meters in the US at the high school level with a 5.7 tailwind in Texas, where Jose Garcia and um, this other guy, Washington, both ran 10 flat in a high school meet in the US with a 5.7 tailwind. As you can see, the 9 athletes in the high school ran 10:40 or below, showing the depth of quality right now in the US school system. And last but not least, to round it up, just bringing to the attention of everybody, there's going to be a very exciting race in the next few days. I think tomorrow in Gateshead, England, in the women's 100 metres with Sha'Carri Richardson, Dina Asher-Smith of Great Britain, and
That is tomorrow.
yeah, it's tomorrow. And Elaine Thompson, the Olympic champion, has withdrawn from the race, but we have Richardson, Dina Asher-Smith of England, Richardson of the United States, who's just recently ran a 10:72. What's her name? Fraser Price, the world champion, who's run 10:70 from Jamaica. Dina Asher-Smith has run 10:83. Blessing of Cabre of Nigeria, who's run, who was 10:85 PB, I think, 10:87 from Natasha Morrison, the other Jamaican, and also Talu, who won the 100 metres in Italy over Christina Knott in a windy 10:96. So, it's an interesting race in Gateshead, England, with around, I think, 7 or 8 women who've run under 11 seconds, lining up in the 100 metres.
It's a good fight.
It will be very interesting because Sha'Carri Richardson has not ran against, Sha'Carri Richardson has beaten everybody she's run against so far this year, but she hasn't ran against Fraser Price yet. So it'll be interesting. This will be a very interesting dress rehearsal for the Olympic Games, with nearly all the top women in the world joining the meet.
They look like a male. They run also like a male. 10:70, 10:60.
Yeah. So that was pretty much it. The last thing I want to note, and this is in regards to some comments regarding Yasin Gumili's middle distance, 1,500 and also 5,000 meter record, is this. As of now, 17 of the Philippine records in the open age category, in the men and the women, are with Phil Am athletes. 17 records. So what I'm saying here is that in middle distance, the 800 men and women and the 1,500 meter record belong now to Carter, Gamali, and Barnard. So question is, the middle distance program, what really needs to be done in terms of leveling up the local athletes so that they can be competitive at the Southeast Asian level. When we're looking at, we're staring down times of 3:43, we're no longer in the 3:50 range. We're looking at times in the 3:40s. In the women's, you need to really be under 2:10 in the 800. And also you need to be under 4:30 in the 15. And then in the men's 800, 8, it's not so quite competitive, but we still look at times of 150 and below. Um, yeah, so that was just a note, something I'd like to leave a note on is what really needs to be done for middle distance in the Philippines. The fact is that locally we're not getting the competitive results without needing to, you know, we. I'm not. I've got nothing against bringing in the likes of Carter or Gamali or Jessica or whoever, because obviously they really want to compete for the Philippines, and they put in the sacrifice, the effort as well. But my question is, why locally? I mean, I'll just leave you with this. We'll leave this point. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but at the end, what I'm seeing is very common that there are athletes in the Philippines who run their best times in high school, in the middle distance or in the distance events. They run their best
Yeah.
time in high school or early college, but then when they go to their next coach, after their first coach, they go to a new coach, their times just don't improve anymore.
Instead
Like
of improving, it becomes worse. That's
all
why
stays the same.
the continuity of the program of the athletes is very necessary, because
What I get
if
as
we will
well.
analyze the winners of the middle distance in the Olympics, I saw 5.5 runners still won in the Olympics in the 1,500 meters. So height is not really might here in this event. That's why I think we can win gold medals in the SEA Games or even in the Asian Games in
Well,
this event
let me put it
if we
this
have
way. In women's track events, unless we're talking about even in the hurdles, really, because you know why? In the women's hurdles, the height of the hurdles isn't really that high compared to the men. It's very high. We're
yeah, yeah,
talking
yeah.
110. In the women's, it's only 84 centimeters. It's not that high. So even a short woman who's fast can be good at the hurdles. But in the men's, it's not about just being fast. You kind of have to have a good height so you
Height
can
is
actually get
really
over
might.
the hurdles. In men, you have to be about 5'11" or 6 foot to be a good hurdle to have an advantage in the hurdles. But in the women, you can be 5'3" and still hurdle well because you don't have to jump high to get over the hurdles. You just have to run fast in between the hurdles.
What
And
is the height?
you know,
What is the height up there? No? The Chinese runner who won the gold medal in the Olympics.
Lujang
He is
5'11".
only 5'11", I think. No? He
Well,
is very.
let me put it this way with women's 100-meter dash. Look at this. These women here who are lined up. These women here, Shelly Ann Fraser Price and Sha'Carri Richardson, they have both run 10:70 for the 100-meter dash, and they are two of the top 10 fastest women in the history of the event. How tall are they? Shelly Ann Fraser Price is 5 flat. Sha'Carri
Five flat
Richardson
only.
is 5'1". The height of these girls is the same like the height of some of the Filipino athletes. So obviously it's not about height for women's sprints, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think
Koyom is only 5'2", 5'3", I think.
yeah, but the thing is that with
But he is
Koyum,
within.
at least for it is not high jump or something which requires height. Imagine in hurdles for somebody like Koyum, she doesn't need to be able to jump that high from height. She just needs to be able to run fast, be able to sprint between the hurdles. I mean, if Koyum gets quicker in the 100, her hurdle time will get faster. She doesn't need to be particularly tall. She just needs to be fast.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I saw also one time in the Olympics, there is somebody who is running only in 4 strides. He is just small. I don't think if that is 1940, 1950s Olympic Games. She was running 4 strides instead of
Yeah.
doing it usually in three
You know,
strides.
Gail Devers is only 5'2" or 5'3" as well. Gail Devers. Think about that. She was the Olympic champion in the 100 meters and the 100 hurdles. She's only 5'2", 5'3". She's only 160 centimeters tall. She's about 5'2" or 5'3" as well. So she's Gail. If you tell Koyum, there have been Olympic champions like Gail Devers who are only 5'2". So the height in the women's hurdles is not something to be seen as a psychological barrier. It's more about
Yeah, even
just
in yeah, even in the results of the last Olympics, the gold
yeah,
medalist was not too too high. It's about only 5'5" or 5'6". Who is that woman
Sally
from?
Pearson is about 5'5", 5'6". But
Yeah,
what I'm
yeah.
saying is that there still is a little bit of a difference between being 5'2" and 5'6". But like Gail Devers is about the same height as Koyum, and she was like a very good athlete. So there's no reason why somebody like Koyum, has a disadvantage because of her height. Because like there have been Olympic champions who have been her height. So she can just take away the fact that somebody like Gail Devers is the same height as her, and Gail Devers was an Olympic champion. So she's got still she still has potential in the event. Um, yeah. So with that, I mean, um, I think that height is probably more important in the men's events. In the women's events, it's not as important because, like, obviously there have been a lot of shorter women that have been very good in a lot of different events. I mean, yeah, it's just, and the last thing I want to ask is this: there are a lot of coaches around, and when they can't improve an athlete, and this isn't just in middle, this is actually in all events, but no, but a lot of the time I hear this in middle. When a coach cannot improve an athlete, if the athlete runs their best time with their high school coach, like say in the province or wherever, or the coach that had them before that, and let's say the athlete runs their best time when they're 15 or 16, and then they go to the new coach, and the new coach cannot improve them, the coach turns around and says, "Oh, I can't get an improvement from this athlete because they weren't trained properly when they were in high school because they burnt them out when they ran that time." But that's really kind of a flimsy excuse because the high school coach has gotten the best time out of the athlete, and then the athlete goes to the next coach, and we're talking about a high school coach getting an improvement from the athlete every year. I'm not just saying that they just got lucky and they got one improvement, but they had a program where the athlete improved every year they were with that athlete, and then they go to college or nationals or team or whatever, and then they get no improvement, and the coach says when they can't improve the athlete, "Oh, it's the fault of the previous coach because the previous coach didn't train them properly."
I will answer to you that. Based on my observation, the best thing that really affects the performance of athletes when they become college are their education. They have a
Yeah,
hectic schedule. That's why maybe the plan of the PSC, if they are planning to put a college school there in Tarlac,
yeah.
that's a good development. If they will be billeted in the sports complex at the same time they are studying there, and only the professors are going to the sports complex that teach the athletes. That's the best thing maybe that we can do as far as
Yeah,
the program of DPSC is concerned. That's a good development if that's the things that will happen in our sports. Not only in track and field, but also in swimming. All the individual events maybe really needs to have a school. They will we will not
yeah.
send anymore our athletes to the UAP and NCA just
Yeah, the
to get
problem
the
with
scholarship.
athletes going to Manila for school is the lack of there's a lot of problems. It's not just the studies. Some other things I want to bring up, which are also problems, is the following. Um, One is the lack of a facility. Like for example, you go to Ultra and there's 30 other schools using the track. and there's
Yeah,
hundreds
yeah,
of
yeah.
thousands of joggers
Congested.
there as well, you're lucky if you
Congested.
get touch one piece of the oval because there's so many people trying to use the same facilities. So there's a lack of enough track ovals. The second problem is the traffic. Imagine you go
Yeah,
to
that is.
training and then you
It
come
was
back and you get stuck in
already
traffic.
addressed now. There's no traffic here in the Philippines now in Manila because of the skyways being
Yeah,
what we call that constructed by the Duterte administration. It was
hopefully. The next thing I want to
open.
bring up is the diet. I mean, some of the diet of what they feed the athletes in some of the schools is really low quality meat. You know, like bits of
Yeah,
minced pork, and you know, like it's really and it's not enough. Sometimes the athletes need, you know, like good nutrition and enough food so they can actually run at their best. I mean, my view is if athletes are eating junk like Jollibee and fried chicken, imagine when you train, your body it breaks down and it needs to be repaired. If you're trying to repair your body with crappy food, it doesn't repair itself properly when it's trying to heal, and that
but if
leads
you
to
are
injury.
just eating dried fish and kamote tops, and then you're a Philippine team athlete, uh, eh,
Dried fish has still
maybe
got a bit of protein, so it's not bad. What I'm thinking is worse is if you're a Philippine team athlete and you're sending all your money back to your parents and your family and you're eating
yeah,
instant
yeah, yeah.
noodles. That's
It's
worse
really
because
hard.
instant noodles, you know, instant noodles, if you're living off instant noodle, eating instant noodles, that's a recipe for getting injured because there's no protein, no nutritional content in them. If you're eating that, you're basically asking for an injury. If you're eating, you know, crappy food like instant noodles, you know, you need
Maybe
to
the good.
fuel up properly if you're an athlete. You can't just eat crap, otherwise, you know, you're kind of going to run crap or
may-
perform crap. Um,
maybe the good thing that the Patapa will do is to, let's say they are receiving 40,000 monthly,
yeah.
then let's set aside 50,000 for the food of the athlete to make sure
No,
that
the
the
best thing to
vitamins.
do, the best
Yeah,
thing
yeah,
to
yeah.
do is you just, you know, like you basically provide the athlete free food. So they have, you know, the food is healthy and it's been provided. If the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
athletes,
That's the best thing.
yeah, so the athletes will eat it because it's free. They won't eat it because it's healthy. They'll eat it because it's free. But they can't sell the food and then send the money back to the province. They have to actually eat the food. So that's why when I was with the PSC before, I said you should provide the athletes free food and make sure that a nutritionist or you know like a dietitian is preparing the food to make sure it's healthy for the athletes. If the athletes don't want to eat it, that's cool. They can just go and eat somewhere else. But the thing is that they can't sell the food and send the money. They can't turn the food into money and like use it for something that's not going for their training. So I said that if you provide them the food, they'll probably eat it because it's free. It doesn't matter, you know, they don't care it's healthy or not. They're eating it because it's free, but you make sure it's healthy so you have a control of the nutrition of the athletes. But then the athletes are going to complain, oh, it's the same, blah 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 blah. Like that. And I said, well, who cares? You're getting it for free. You're not paying for the food. You're getting it for free. So you know, if you don't want to eat it, then you can eat something else. But this is
Maybe
free food.
maybe we need also the support of the private sectors. Let's say in track and field, if there is five companies supporting the track and field program, not only the Ayala, maybe we can address all the problems.
The worst
That's
thing though
all.
was during the Sea Games, the food that the PSC provided, there was a lot of it, but a lot of it was like some of it wasn't really that healthy. You know, they have like a all you can eat buffet at the Sea Games. You know, do you really want to have an all you can eat buffet at the Sea Games? Because the athletes will gain weight before the competitions. Well, you know, like when they're going to eat at the all you can eat buffet, they can what's stopping them from just overeating and gaining weight?
Carbo loading. Anyway, during my previous experience when we competing in the Palarong Bambansa, I always watch my athletes to get their food, the rice, the vegetables, the fish. I'm very strict when it comes to the rice because I want to maintain the weight of my athletes just for him to compete for his best during the competition. Because if
Yeah, because like, say
the
for
coach
example,
is
if you're a
not
400 meter athlete,
oh yeah, yeah.
if your event's 400 meters, every extra kilo you carry, you're going to lose like half a second almost for every extra kilo overweight you are for something like a 400 because you're basically your power to weight's going down. If your like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
weight's
yeah.
decreasing, power to weight's decreasing, so you've got
The
more
same
weight to
also.
sort of carry
The
around.
same also what Pacquiao doing. Is really particular when it comes to weight category. That's why in track and field, I believe also we also need to maintain the weights that we are maintaining just to perform well during the competition proper. That's a thing that I am doing.
Yeah,
That's why
I mean,
almost all the athletes that I have really
I mean,
focus when it
like
comes to
all
their
these athletes here, all these
performance.
women that run 10, 10, 7, 10, 8, 10, 9, all these women here, they're probably all on, athlete diets. They probably really control what they eat to be able to run those sort of times because if they eat crap, if they eat crap, they're going to just their muscles will break down. That's why these athletes, like, at this level, are really controlling that they're getting enough nutrition in their diet versus, somebody who runs, like 12.5 in the women's who probably just eats whatever, like Jollibee, fried chicken, McDonald's,
Fried
12
chicken.
5
Oh
athlete.
yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
That's
A 10
a
7
common
10 9 athlete probably, occasionally has McDonald's or something, but
that's
they
common mistakes
probably
of the
make sure to get
athletes.
enough nutrition as well.
Not only mistakes of the athlete, but mistake also of a coach. If you don't have
Yeah.
the enough knowledge to that, you just allow your athletes to eat
Yeah.
something to
The
before
dangers
their
of bad nutrition are not just gaining weight and being too heavy for running, also not not getting enough good nutrition can actually lead to getting injured because your muscles don't have the right nutrients to repair themselves properly. So the other danger is not just weight gain but also injury from from like not replenishing your body properly.
that's why maybe we can invite some coaches sometimes if we will schedule
Yeah.
our live streaming. Maybe we will invite the coach of Ilocos, coach of Mindanao to
And we can also
listen
invite
our
Teddy back.
discussion because it's nice to discuss something that they never knew with the system of their training because they need really knowledge just to make sure that the athletes are in the good condition
Yeah.
while preparing for the
Yeah.
competition. Yun,
Anyway,
that's the
let's we should round this up because we've been chatting for nearly 2 hours here. um, and I'm sure you have school works and stuff to mark because I know you're a teacher. So yeah. Anyway, Coach, thanks very much for joining us tonight.
okay,
Also,
okay,
thank
okay.
you to James uh, and your other athletes for participating. Maybe next one of these on Saturday. Um, I'll let you know.
Maybe next time it's better if you have one cell phone also that you can use just to answer the comment of the of your viewers. That's the good also that you can do.
Yeah.
Having a
Well,
communication
no
with
one
shout
really asked any
outs.
questions. Looking at the side chat menu, no one really asked questions, but there was like just some comments, but there weren't really any questions. I mean, like this is one of the comments, for example, from James. The herd immunity of the virus by this coming December. I believe that there is a herd immunity of the virus by this coming December. I'm not exactly sure what he means by herd immunity, but that was really the only comment we got.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. James was my former teammates during my college. I invited him to attend the rest of the
Yeah.
guys.
Is he like a full American? Okay. Anyway, we'll wrap this up. Thanks very much for joining us, Coach Fernando, and
Thank you
we'll
also.
see you guys all next time.
Okay, next time we will schedule it for 3 hours, and I am now
I don't know
hungry.
if it will take 3 hours.
I did not take my dinner yet.
Yeah,
Thank you
no,
so.
that's why
Thank you
I
also.
don't want you to go hungry, man. Okay. Well, thanks for your time. Okay.
That's good, guys. Instead of calling me in my phone, we can talk in the StreamYard or in the YouTube so that you are also gaining some view hours for your YouTube.
Okay.
It's good.
Thanks, Coach. Okay.
I will support you for that. Thank you, Coach. Thank you.